More Devas. So this is the second video in my Devas series for Digimon Tamers. This one will be going over Pajiramon, the sheep Deva, represented by Wooloo, Vajramon, the ox or boar, bull, or ox or bull Deva, depending on how to do it, represented there by Tauros, as in not the Pokemon Tauros. I don't have any stuffed of those, but it's a ox or a ram or so. It's the closest thing I had. And then Indramon, the horse Deva, represented by the plastic horse. So time to talk about them. Pajiramon and Vajramon actually appear as a pair, so I'll talk about them partly together and then move on to just Vajramon because he has a little bit more of continuation of what happens for him. So as I mentioned before, all of the Devas are, of course, servants of the Sovereign. Generally, in the first, for Digimon Tamers, they have all been sent by Chowmon to go and try to find Calamon, who is the catalyst, also to cause destruction and try to conquer the human world. As one does. As one does. So all of them, they're all just being sent at different intervals to try to fix, try to stop the Tamers or whatever, taunt Yamaki, whatever. These ones actually end up not really interacting with Yamaki, but Vajramon really ends up interacting with Rika and Renamon quite a bit, and then Indramon really ends up interacting with Impmon a lot, so I'll get to those. So, Pajiramon and Vajramon, the sheep and the ram, sorry, that was a redundant one. The sheep and the ox both appear in the downtown area of the real world, downtown Shinjuku, and they just start eating all of these different digital goods to stabilize themselves. So I'm assuming probably what happened is they just didn't have quite enough stability when they came through, and now they're just like gobbling up all of this. Like, I think they started eating a whole bunch of this different like computer tech, and I think I see them like eating CDs or something like that when they first show up. To each their own. I guess they need to devour that stuff to, stabilize themselves a bit more. And what ends up happening is, Henry and Gargamon show up and they start trying to deal with them. Gargamon ends up fighting with Pajiramon, and Renamon ends up fighting with Vajramon. The names are very similar, so I got to double check to make sure I'm talking about the correct one at the correct time. So Henry and Gargamon are dealing with Pajiramon, the sheep, and what ends up happening is Henry ends up getting a blue card and Matrix digivolving Gargamon into Rapidmon, and Rapidmon is able to destroy Pajiramon and temporarily disables or disassembles Vajramon's data, because Vajramon ends up getting attacked as well by Rapidmon. So we kind of get that moment, and they think that they defeated both of them. Pajiramon's weapon is actually, it's like a longbow, or it's not a longbow, it's a crossbow. It's like a mechanical crossbow. So that's Pajiramon's weapon. Pajiramon generally seems to be depicted as like female in this regard, and Vajramon is more male, is generally the way that they tend to show them. Most of the Devas tend to be more on the male side from what we've seen. Pajiramon and I think Antilamon are the only two that seem to be feminine of any kind, but then again, as I've stated before, Digimon don't necessarily have genders. For the most part. I mean, like, I think there's a few that are like, well, that one's clearly female or that one's clearly male when it comes to like Anjawomon or Lady Devimon, stuff like that. But for the Devas, there's not really too much of that. But Vajramon or Pajiramon and Telamon do seem to be the two that lean more toward on the female side of things in regards to like their voice actors. A good example of this is the fact that for I think for one of the different dubs, the person that voiced Renamon was actually male as opposed to female. Unlike in the English dub where Vajramon is voiced as female. So Pajiramon easily gets destroyed. by Rapidmon, so there's not too much else that happens there. And yeah, not too much there. Then we move into Vajramon. As I said, he appears at the same time. They're working together in tandem because I guess Chuchamon's like, well, okay, well, one Deva on its own didn't really do too much, wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. So let's send two. And in all honesty, in regards to like the Zodiac in general, or in regards to like I guess the 12 heavenly generals that the Devas are also based on, I do not know if there is a specific connection between the sheep and the ram. Why do I keep going back and forth between sheep and ram? Those are the same thing. Sheep and ox. Sorry, sheep and ox. I don't know if there's supposed to be a specific connection between those two, like those two gods, and that's why they were paired up this way, or they're just like, well, let's send two at the same time, and we'll make it both of these two. So that might have just been what they did. Vajramon ends up, Pajiramon is dealing with Rapidmon. Vajramon is dealing with Redamon, and does end up digivolving. Redamon and him kind of end up having this bit of a back and forth and everything. And then, of course, when Gargamon destroys Rapidmon and destabilizes Vajramon as well, he appears to be destroyed as well. What ends up happening is that later, when later that night, he reforms. He finds Rika and Redamon. And, like, I guess him and Renamon have, like, this telepathic connection or moment or something like that. I don't know. Because Renamon is just like, Rika, you stay here. I might be gone for a little while. And Renamon goes off with Vajramon. And I don't think it's very long that they're gone. They're off talking somewhere, having a discussion or something. And Rika is just kind of, like, missing Renamon for that short amount of time. And then Renamon shows back up, and Vajramon is with her, and it's revealed that Vajramon had decided that he wanted to offer her this chance to become one of the new Devas, because he, the way that he kept describing it the way that he kept saying it in the English dub, and they may have altered this a little bit from the Japanese dub, but he very much compliments the fact that she has this very bestial form when it comes to Renamon, that is very bestial but very elegant and very lovely at the same time. And then Rika ends up finding where Renamon and Vajramon are, and I think Henry and Takato show up at the same time as well. And what ends up happening is, of course, Renamon digivolves into Cubimon, and Vajramon continues to compliment her, saying this form is even more lovely and bestial and whatever than the other one. It's so much better than any human form or whatever. And the quote that Vajramon has that I put in here for him is, "Beautiful Renamon, I have asked you here because I believe you are worthy to serve our master, the magnificent Digimon sovereign. Join us, and the kingdoms of Earth will be ours for the taking." I guess that's one way of trying to propose to someone. Obviously, Renamon does not take him up on this offer of becoming a new Deva. She does not accept. But what ends up happening is Vajramon tries to attack Rika, and of course Renamon defends Rika. Cubimon defends Rika, and this results in when Cubimon digivolves into Taumon for the first time. And Vajramon actually ends up becoming very repulsed by this, because because Taumon's appearance is much more humanoid than either Renamon or Cubimon's were. And Vajramon is just like, oh no, he does it, oh no, that's not gonna fly. And he becomes hellbent on destroying Taumon. And Taumon, of course, ends up destroying him. I don't remember if she absorbs his data or not. She may have, she may not. As I said, they kind of moved on from that. In regards to attacks, Pajiramon, the sheep, her main attack was Thunder Stomp, where she just stopped hard enough to generate a localized quake. So I guess earthquake in Pokemon terms. And then Vajramon has Terrorblade, which his weapons are actually like two swords that actually look pretty cool. And so he uses his his forefeet and his upper body to strike the ground with his two blades, and this generating a fissure that extends for up to, I think it's like 50 meters ahead of him, and then hurls out rocks and stuff like that, and shockwaves and stuff like that to, like, cause damage to his opponents in the nearby area. And then he also has Deva Blade, which is where he crosses his two blades and fires an energy beam at the opponent, because Digimon logic. And so both of them are destroyed. Vajramon is one of the few that actually ends up having like 2 episodes. Then we move on to Indramon, who is the horse Deva. For most of the Devas, I tend to really like their designs. It's very much you can tell what animal they are supposed to be. And then throughout the course of that, so it's like you can tell what animal they're based off of, and then from there you can make connections to the different generals that they represent, and the different celestial dragons. That's Digimon. That's One Piece. Different question, different concept. The Devas the Devas, the Zodiac, the heavenly generals, how those all kind of intertwine together. So with Indramon, Indramon appears in the digital world, and he ends up having a conversation with Itmon, because Itmon just like shows up, and Indramon just starts laughing at him because he points out that Itmon has the stench of humans on him, and a Digimon that has been kept by humans has no self-respect, and tells Itmon that he should just abandon his dreams of digivolving, which Indramon Indramon is very much again, most of the Devas are very high and mighty, holier than thou, cream of the crop, very upper crust type of mindset in their regard, because for them they're kind of like the highest authority in the digital world underneath the sovereigns, because they take that job very seriously, and now all of them have been sent with this mission to try to take down the human world. And pretty much all of them have this disdain of humans, because that's just, they kind of tend to follow the setup of like what Chuchamon was saying. And even when we end up in the digital world later on, there are some Digimon that have more disdain of humans, some that have less. It just depends on the Digimon. And even like Impmon is a very good example of this, because throughout his whole setup of, he starts off as just wanting to cause trouble for the humans, and then, because Impmon is emotionally constipated as well, and I go over this so much more thoroughly in the IE and Mako and Impmon video. Impmon, he wants to hang out with the Tamers and their Digimon, but he can't bring himself to admit it, so he just like teases them until they let him join. And that type of a thing. So there's like, he's emotionally constipated as well. Him and Rika can go and have some therapy sessions together. Yamaki can join them as well, because he's emotionally constipated to a degree as well. But what ends up happening is Indramon and Impmon have this very intense conversation, because Impmon is trying to convince the Deva that he is strong, because it's like he's seen Gilmon and Renamon and Terriermon and, them all end up like Digimon or Digivolving in regards to being around their partners and things like that. And Impmon wants to figure out how he can Digivolve as well. This is part of when Impmon is going through his issues of his own self-worth. And that type of a thing. And what ends up happening is Impmon ends up actually going out and trying to cause a whole lot of problems, because he's trying to prove that he can be a threat. Because what happened was Renamon shows up, sees Impmon, sees Indramon, and just kind of like grabs Impmon and like drags him away. And Indramon just tells him that he's, again, pathetic. And, you know, Indramon then just like disappears, and then he returns later and battles Itmon, because he's just kind of like, I guess he's just kind of like humoring Itmon. And Itmon had gone out, and like, you know, I do more of Itmon's side of things in regards to like the Itmon video, as I said. But what ends up happening is Itmon tries to battle against Indramon, and you know, like he's, you know, summing up his fireballs and throwing them at Indramon and all this type of stuff, and like he tried terrorizing some people and didn't really go very well. And you know, Indramon is just, you know, it's like throwing cotton balls at like a bear. It's not going to do anything. It's like, throw this cotton ball, bing. Well, I'm dead. Type of an issue. And Indramon ends up like attacking Itmon, and Itmon almost ends up, you know, his data becomes almost destabilized enough to the point where he, you know, would be destroyed. But he ends up, you know, he ends up getting saved by Renamon, because of course Rika and, you know, Renamon, Growlmon, Gargomon, Cubimon, blah, 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 they all show up, and they're able to at least try to fight against Indramon. And Indramon's attack, his power, is actually this thing that he has. It's called this Horn of Desolation. That is just this giant horn that like he can summon from his back. And like a horn is in like a type of horn, not like a horn from his head. But like, you know, he's able to use that, and it, like, I think it absorbs a bunch of the attacks that come from the other three, and then it will unleash that power on them, like so many fold or something like that. And that causes a lot of damage to them. Yamaki actually ended up activating Juggernaut during this time frame, and this causes Indramon to leave for a short amount of time, and then he shows back up again, and he's much bigger. And again, he's fighting against Growlmon and Gargomon and Cubimon and everything, and they end up losing. And then Takato is able to get a hold of one of the blue cards again, as I stated in the like modified card video and stuff like that. The blue cards just kind of show up when the trainers need them. They're the, you know, Deus Ex Machina type of thing. You know, Takato gets the blue card, and he swipes it, and Growlmon digivolves into War Growlmon, and he is able to then match power to and destroys Indramon and his shell and his horn before he's able to, you know, unleash another attack and everything, and destroys him. So kind of the quote that we get from Indramon is, "I was chosen by the Sovereign, but did you really think you could defeat me with paltry tricks such as these? Now, allow me to show you what a Digimon of true power can do." I believe he is saying that when he says this in the show, I believe he's saying this to Itmon. I don't remember if Indramon has one episode or two, but it's like if he had two, I would not have been surprised by that. I think he may have had two. And stuff that happens with him ends up leading into certain things that happen with Itmon, because a lot of this is like some of the last episodes before they end up going into the digital world, before everything happens with Vajramon and everything happens with that, which will be in the next episode, the next video for the Devas. But again, you know, Indramon's attack is this giant freaking horn that he can just summon. I wouldn't necessarily say out of hammer space, because we do actually see him with it like on his back a fair amount of time. When he's there, it's like laying there, and it's like wrapped up with like cloth around him, so it's, you know, held in place, so it's not quite hammer space. But so there's some other differences that happen with that. Some of the other stuff that ends up happening for these three, not too much. There's, you know, again, the Devas aren't really, once they're kind of gone, they're not really referenced all that much. But But again, they keep getting sent into the human world because, Chichamon A wants to get Calamon back, and B is trying to, he wants to conquer the human world. We, of course, find out later, much, much later, that, of course, Chichamon needs to get a hold of Calamon because of the D Reaper, and they need to get stronger in order to try to fight the D Reaper. And I'm assuming that parts of the reason why Chichamon also wants to just like conquer the human world is because he's like, well, if we can conquer the human world, then maybe there's something there that can help us, or maybe they can find a way to have the use the humans against the D Reaper, I guess, possibly, but I'm not sure. It's odd, but these three are very much examples of the Devas that are very much high and mighty and holier than thou, upper crust. We're better than you because we're the Devas. We're stronger. Indramon is very dismissive of Impmon in regards to that. So there's stuff that happens there. As I said, Vajramon really wanted to try to recruit Renamon, and Renamon is just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not leaving Rika. She's my tamer. She's my friend. I have no intention of abandoning her just because you offer me this, this power type of a thing. So I like how they do that. Again, the Devas are also just there to be these catalysts that result in like the tamers being able to get their Digimon to their mega forms and stuff, so that way they're more prepared for when it's time for them to go to the digital world. So yeah, that's what we have. The next video will be about Pajiramon, who is the mouse, Vajramon, who is the boar/pig, and then Pajiramon, who is the monkey. So, okay, so the first one is the rat, not the mouse. Sorry. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.